Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, and we didn't have a game this weekend, so the positive spirit continues from the previous 2-0 victory over Rangers. And on this episode, we will be previewing the trip to Ibrox as the Dons look to kickstart their top six campaign after the split by taking more points off, I'm sure, a rather depressed Rangers after their misery at the weekend. But we'll also be rounding up the latest news from down AB24 because, Calum, there's been a few announcements to cover since we last convened.
Well, there has been one massive one in particular, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. I'm probably looking forward to the start of this episode more than I am towards the back end because I'll work myself into a shoot again, as always.
Yeah, as always, I love the optimism you carry when announcements like this carry on. But a quick thanks to all of you that continue to tune in to the show, whether that be on YouTube or audio over the weekend, despite having no game for you to enjoy. We did pass 1,500 subscribers on YouTube, and we're closing in on 750 subscribers on Spotify as well. So thank you for your continued support, and for those that reach out and give us feedback, positive or negative. We do appreciate it either way. It helps us improve. And Calum, one person that's helped the football club improve since January has been the appointment of Barry Robson and Steve Agnew, who have been rewarded for their remarkable turnaround with a 2-year deal. I mean, I think it was the news we were all expecting, but what's your reaction to it?
It was sort of, at this point, it was more when, not if, wasn't it? Delighted. I was on my way back from Newcastle. I haven't been down there. Watched Gateshead win 4-0. Watched Newcastle win 3-1. And then some more fantastic news coming up the road. Barry Robson looked very disappointed to be shoved into a suit, mind you. But delighted, and I think very, very important that Steve Agnew sticks around as well. That experience has probably gone a long way in helping us to get to where we are now, and hopefully it can continue to be the same. And the fact he's willing to stay up here when he's had a lot of time down south, a lot of experience there, could probably get into a lot of championship coaching staff. Delighted. And the HMS Pistol League is on its way.
It is indeed. And yeah, he doesn't look the most comfortable in his suit, does Barry? But if you think Barry Robson looks uncomfortable in a suit, I can't wait to see you on Thursday night in your suit.
Still not got a suit jacket. I've got a shirt, I've got trousers, plenty ties, shoes, don't have a suit jacket. My dad's like, oh, you can just borrow one of mine. I don't think I'm going to fit into one of his.
Good. I can't wait for that. It's going to be brilliant. But no, I totally agree. I think it's great to see Barry rewarded for, as we said, the turnaround that he's achieved since January. But I think the biggest thing for me out of that news was the securing Steve Agnew. Because, you know, Barry said that he wanted that wealth of experience to help him at the start of his managerial career. And as much as Barry's obviously going to get a lot of the credit for the results, I think Steve Agnew deserves a lot of credit as well for some of the coaching that he's been able to provide. I think certainly if you listen to some of the players, they're big fans of both Barry and Steve. And as you said, when there was the potential of attractive jobs down south, you look at some of the Premiership jobs that are coming available, and I'm sure you will see the axe wielded in the Championship over the coming weeks as well. There's certainly a lot out there that could have attracted him to go back down south, but obviously the pool of staying up here and what he's seen in terms of the potential for the club. And, you know, again, we've spoken about it from a player's point of view, but testing himself on a coaching level on a European basis as well, hopefully, is obviously a lure enough to keep him up here. And obviously, I think we're recording this on Monday evening. It's not been officially announced yet, but by all accounts seems that Liam Fox is also going to retain a permanent role within the coaching staff into next season as well.
Yeah, I think that can also sort of only be a good thing. Obviously, he's not been here for a long time, but the continuity, I think, and the sort of relief he's has added to sort of other areas of the coaching team at Aberdeen as well, which is very much positive. And you're absolutely right. I suppose for Steve Agnew, a lot of his time coaching has been sort of lower level Premier League, sort of Championship. So European football, probably a massive pool, but I am absolutely delighted, somewhat terrified now that he's officially permanent, that the bubble could burst. But I'm trying to remain positive And maybe we'll get another new manager bounce. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. Do you get the new manager bounce now that it's official? But I'm glad you went that, because everyone would be thinking I was continuing to be negative Nelly if it was me that brought it up. There was part of me that did think, should we just wait until third is secured? Because it would be typical Aberdeen for the bubble to burst now that he's been officially named. But I don't know. There's something about this. Certainly the team in the last few weeks, and certainly the coaching staff, that suggests we won't see that negative impact.
No, I mean, I'm feeling as good as I've felt as an Aberdeen fan for a very long time, probably since, foolishly getting overexcited saying that we're going to win everything. And even then, I don't think there was enough evidence to justify my mood. But I'm absolutely delighted, I suppose, with Barry now given the permanent role as well, as a lot of other people have mentioned sort of on social media and things like that. It goes a long way in helping recruitment, which is definitely underway, you'd like to think, for next season. Feelers certainly will be out, and having a permanent manager who's on fantastic form as well certainly is going to help us.
Yeah, and I think that optimism that you refer to as well was something that was mentioned in the office today, where we'd said it's kind of had that pre-season optimistic feel about that news. Like, you're already excited now for next season at what Barry Robson could achieve. Obviously, the summer coming up is a big summer for him and the club, with turnaround expected with the loan players, and what possible recruitment we can bring in as well. And as you said, that recruitment is already underway with Angus MacDonald, also penning a 2-year deal to continue his stay in the northeast of Scotland. The first linchpin in the centre of defence for next season secured. And from what we've seen, Calum, I think a vital signing to get that one over the line before the end of the season. And as Angus said himself, there was options down south, but he's enjoyed his time here and wants to continue doing so.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the teams we saw linked with him, Plymouth Argyle, who've just been promoted with Sam Cosgrove from League One back to the Championship. So that is a potentially very attractive proposition, perhaps a chance to play at a good level, but in which is basically France as well. Much better, much warmer than I'm sure up here is. But delighted, he seems to really bought into it. He seems to be not only a real favourite amongst the fans, but amongst some of the players as well. You sort of get that sense. And you just sort of, I feel like he's come up here and he's really loving being here. He's enjoying his football, which of course, given his own personal battles as well, is excellent to see, as well as helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wonder, going back to the point you made about, Barry Robson now being officially appointed as the next Aberdeen manager, with Johnny Hayes committing for next season, Angus MacDonald doing likewise, just how many other players may now follow suit because, they've had that experience of working under Barry, know what he's like. But also, as you say, players looking from the outside in going, you know what, I fancy a bit of that, or well, that's an exciting project going on in Aberdeen. I'll go up there instead of, maybe somewhere else I'm going, now that I know who's going to be in charge of that club.
Yeah, absolutely makes a difference. And, you mentioned that potentially more. Alan Burrows is certainly hoping, we're tweeting out that that's 2 down and hopefully more to come. So, and I've got faith in them to actually do the business, weirdly. I'm feeling positive about everything. I don't actually know what's going on because, 3 months ago, I hated everyone and anything. It's Aberdeen.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I loved how that everyone had totally forgotten that Johnny Hayes had signed that extension, that when Burrows had tweeted out that that's 2 down, everyone was hurriedly trying to guess who the second person actually was. Now, this was something that I had kind of mulled over on when I was driving on Friday night, and I saw Michael Scott tweet the same. If you had to choose between one of the loan players to stay, between Matty Pollock and Leighton Clarkson for next season, who would it be and why? And honestly, I don't know if I could pick. It's actually quite a tough question.
Well, it's a very tough question. I will be making you pick. My answer, however, is actually Matty Pollock, which, we've sort of been gushing over Leighton Clarkson recently on the show. However, I just think because of the difference that he's made since coming in alongside McDonald, I would just not like to throw that away when you know it's tried and tested, as we've seen over recent years, not just this season. Centre backs are a risky game to play, and the fact he is just solid, no nonsense. Also seems to love it as a good rapport with McDonald, the fans. Seems like a natural leader as well. A colossus at the back. I would select Matej Pollock. And that's not to discredit Leighton Clarkson at all. Ideally, both would be fantastic, but I just don't want to dick about with centre backs any longer, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's difficult because I saw at the weekend that Matty Pollock was in the away end at the Stadium of Light supporting Watford. You said we've been gushing over Leighton Clarkson. I think we've also been doing a lot of gushing over Matty Pollock as well. I think it's fair to say. I think I was more leaning towards Leighton Clarkson when I was thinking about this. And I feel really horrible. I feel like I'm breaking up with Matty Pollock when I was making this decision mentally. I feel like I was letting the poor guy down by discrediting what he's done. And I think, you make valid points about that partnership that Pollock and McDonald have got. And, the fact, obviously, with Anthony Stewart being out on loan at MK Dons, does that mean if we don't re-sign Pollock that he comes back and our centre-back pairing is Anthony Stewart and Angus MacDonald next year? Or do we look at another, obviously Jack Milne, it's thrown in a couple of man of the match performances at Kelty Hearts. Do we look at bringing him into that centre-back position? But
it says, perhaps.
Well, yeah, exactly. Of course, the go ahead Eagles defender, we're looking to get him in on a free transfer now after failing to secure his services in January. So there are other options we've got there to replace Matty Pollock.
But is it going to work the way that this is working?
Well, that's
they have. I mean, even Angus MacDonald, without the right partner alongside him, it could go all tits up.
Absolutely, and we could say that for some of the centre back pairings we saw between August and January without the right person, but alongside, they looked absolutely horrendous. But we've seen a total transformation in Leighton Clarkson under Barry Robson. A player that can play in behind the strikers and a player that's transformed into that number 6 role that Barry Robson mentioned after the victory over Motherwell. He's learned how to do the dirty work in terms of breaking up play. And we've all seen what he can do. He can pick a pass out of nothing in terms of setting up goals, which look like they're not on. So we kind of miss that threat almost. Because we always say it's fine and handy having a striker that can score goals, but if they're not getting the service, it means nothing. But with Leighton Clarkson, we know they're going to get that service. And how many times on this podcast have we said before, games are won and lost in the midfield? You then have your 3 midfielders providing, obviously, with Wigan looking to give us the green light in terms of speaking to Graham Shinnie. You've got a 3 starting midfield there in Shinnie, Clarkson and Ramadani.
I know. And as I said, in a perfect world, I'd keep them both. Clarkson's obviously done a lot of brilliant technical pieces of work in this Aberdeen team that no one else could do. However, I just don't want to concede shit goals again, if I'm honest. So for me, that's why I picked Matty Pollock. But look, if it was either of them, I'd be happy. I'd be delighted.
Well, here's another one then for you. And it's just come to me now, so this is how off script I'm going for you. With Anthony Stewart's future up in the air, obviously with him at MK Dons just now, and Ross McCrory subject of bids from Bristol City, that potentially opens up the captain's and vice captain spot. If Graham Shinnie was to be re-signed, I think we'd assume that he would take on the captaincy next season. Could you see somebody like Angus MacDonald stepping up into the vice captaincy role?
Absolutely could. I think he's experienced enough. Not only that, you could probably say now proven at this level, even though it's a small sample size. I would be happy enough with that, if I'm honest. However, I also think Ramadani is a very, very good shout for that. But I'd be happy. I wouldn't be against it. And especially given, he's tied up for the next 2 years too. We know we won't be losing him anytime soon.
Yeah, I think Ramadani's a good shout as well, and maybe people would say Johnny Hayes as well, but I don't know whether or not we're going to see him in the starting lineup as much next season as well. So I think you'd want somebody that's going to start. But on that Pollock-Clarkson debate, why not let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or tweet us at RTG_podcast with who you would like to see. In a hypothetical world, as Calum said, in an ideal world, would take both back. But hypothetically, you can only pick one. Let us know your thoughts. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see in the pinned comment down below the link to vote for Player of the Year, as Calum does his best Alfredo Morelos celebration impression. Thanks very much for that. Very apt with the preview coming up later. But if you are listening to the episode, the link for the voting will be available in the audio description.
Yeah, please get involved. I'm sorry about that. I hope that's not an omen for this coming weekend after how much we slagged him off in the last episode.
Yeah, well, I know who to blame now if he does score. But in the awards, we do have Player of the Year, Assist of the Year, Goal of the Season, and we've done 2 podcast-related awards as well. Opposition Guest of the Season, and also, since Calum likes taking annual leave from this show, Co-Host of the Year, which Calum is not nominated for.
God forbid I have a life, Glen.
I know, how dare you. So we'll be looking to hand out the awards to all the successful winners in those categories as well. Other news as well from around the club. Those on Twitter might have seen a social media post from Kai Taylor with a direct message between himself and Alan Burrows. Now, this is music to Calum's ears because it relates to student pricing, where I think Kai basically poses the question why there's no student pricing, and Alan Burrows continuing his great social media interaction with fans, saying that basically he joined the club too late this season and the prices were already set. For me, I'm a bit frustrated because you'd like to think they could have restructured it to include student pricing for this year as well. I don't, maybe have to reprint all the brochures, but basically saying that from next season, that is something that he wants to implement. So music to your ears, I'm sure, Calum.
Absolutely. And it's not just because I'm going to be a DOSA student next year. It was something I raised last year as well when I had no plans to go into education again. I just feel like you're potentially excluding a group of people there. Okay, they can work part-time. That's, it doesn't raise a lot of funds. So it's just more inclusive and also definitely going to be better for me next year financially too. So, it's a win-win. I'm a man of the people and a money-grabbing bastard. So, what can you say?
Yeah, get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Other news as well this week has seen the announcement of a potential conference league being created at the bottom of the SPFL pyramid, which would incorporate B teams as well as selected teams from both the Highland League and Lowland League. This proposal is set to include both Celtic, Rangers and Hearts B, with an Aberdeen B team also invited to join. There'd be 4 teams from the Lowland League and 2 teams from the Highland League. This would see a change to the current pyramid structure, which sees the winners of both the Highland League and Lowland League vie against each other to play Club 42, which is a team bottom of League 2, to allow them to get into the current SPFL league structure. This would also further demote all other teams vying to get into Highland League and Lowland League, respectively, as it seems to be very much an invitation-only league that is being created. But part of me can't also help but feel this is also a greater opportunity for the likes of Celtic and Rangers to further then move their plan of implementing their B teams into League 2 at the earliest opportunity. As the saying goes, if you can't see a wolf in a sheep's costume, then you don't know what you're scared of. So what's your thoughts on these plans, Calum?
Personally, well, not personally, from a sort of selfish Aberdeen fan point of view, if, for example, Hearts are going to be involved in this, then I am sort of half wanting it as well if it's going to benefit Aberdeen Football Club. However, I don't understand why they're creating the need for an extra tier. Like, why couldn't we maybe go in at just that Highland League as it is, as sort of B teams have done now, if we were going to do it, which might not be the right thing anyway, because as I say, it does essentially relegate many clubs below that level. Some of which I will say probably aren't that bothered, and a lot of them, going up on a level isn't really their ambition. But for some, it certainly is. Banksy eventually going into the Highland League, doing very well, things like that. I don't really understand the need for the fifth tier, this Conference League, and I don't really know how it works. Can Celtic and could the B teams get promoted?
Well, this is the other frustration I have with this league, is that you're basically only giving 6 teams an opportunity to gain promotion, because the B teams would not be allowed to gain promotion, as is the current case in the Lone League, where Celtic, Rangers and Hearts are not able to gain promotion. But then also further affects those teams if one of the B teams was to go on and win the league, because how does any other team gain promotion? It causes all the legal constraints of Club 42 saying, well, actually, that league doesn't have an out-and-out winner that can take our place, so why should we go into a playoff? And also, on the basis of your point about from a selfish point of view, if the likes of Hearts are in it, why don't we go in it as well? Well, why should we? Why don't we, use the loan system that we've been using this season? We'll look at the likes of clubs of Elgin, Kelty, Hearts, where we've sent players on loan. Why don't we use that instead and get, these players minutes at, league football, instead of coming up against the Highland League and Lowland League teams? Because if you look at the likes of Rangers B, they've been playing first team players. Adam Devine, who played in that game at Pittodrie against us, has been regularly featuring for Rangers B instead. It was supposed to be a way of developing youth players, but those two clubs have been using it to bring in foreign players as a way of giving them minutes instead. So it's open to exploitation from the so-called bigger clubs, whilst disadvantaging the clubs in both the Lone League and Highland League on their quest. And, I think the point you make about certain teams maybe not wanting to get promotion, that's fair, but there are teams that have been working hard in the background to move up the Scottish pyramid. Fraserburgh last season would have wanted to go up. Brecon this season are trying to do their best. Banksy as well, as you mentioned. I don't think Buckie would have been too keen to go into League Two by all accounts, from the Highland League. But you look at the Lowland League, and there's certainly teams in there. Tranent would have wanted to go up. Spartans will want to go up, go below the Lowland League, and we just need to look at the team that knocked us out of the Scottish Cup. They're wanting to progress as well. And you've also got teams like Linlithrow Rose. That's such a tongue twister. I always struggle with that. Yeah, you know who I meant. But there's progressive teams in Scottish football, both up here in the northeast and down in the central belt, who will be adversely affected by the greed of certain teams wanting to close off the pyramid just to benefit themselves. And I don't really agree with why we would make it a closed shop. For a club like ourselves that pride ourselves on developing talent, I don't really like the fact that we're kind of closing the door and making it more difficult for other clubs to progress.
I don't really have too strong an opinion, but now I'm with you. It doesn't really seem worth it. I suppose also I don't really know what sort of age group of players is this meant to be for. Like, for example, how much would for the likes of Alfie Badvidge or whatever benefit from playing, the Highland League guys? I don't really know how much realistic benefit that's going to have. Another question I would have is over relegation. I mean, what, for example, if all 4 B teams finished in the bottom 4, does then one of the other teams get relegated? How does that work?
I don't believe there's any relegation. It's a
closed
off.
shop.
Yeah.
So it's just basically saying, right, you are going to be stuck in this level of football forever. And I think it's already a system that doesn't work as the way it is right now, because the fact that the Highland League and Lowland League have to play each other to then earn the right to play this other team who have, been shit all season but get another chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it really works.
Yeah, it basically gives Club 42 a bit of a better safety net, knowing what league they would go into, because you look at Brecon last year when they came down to the Highland League, they wanted to be in the Lowland League because they thought they would struggle to attract players to come up and play for them and go to the likes of Wick on a midweek. But next season, if Brecon were to be successful in this playoff, would see the Highland League have an odd number of teams next season, because currently there is no team coming up with the right license to get into the Highland League. But you're just going to maybe any team that's looking to progress, the likes of a Cooter, a Dice, Hermes, certainly those local clubs to us up in Aberdeen, would lose that incentive to go and invest in their teams for the future, knowing that it would be even harder for them to progress further. And I also think for the likes of the Highland League, which I know, like I said, maybe many of you that are listening to this podcast up in the Northeast maybe taking a Highland League game on a weekend that Aberdeen either are not playing or are away from home if you don't travel to away games. The Highland League is a great league. It's got a lot of good spirit, camaraderie about it as well, and that'll just be lost by select teams leaving that league and kind of lose that incentive really as well. So not an idea that I'm behind, and quite disappointed to see Aberdeen involved in it as well.
I'm not a tutor, so I'm not a big Highland League guy. So that's also maybe influenced sort of how I felt prior to this. And also, the other thing I just thought of, like, they say it works in other countries. Are you telling me Spain, Germany, whatever, wouldn't be good if they simply didn't have those B teams and just put players out on loan at the same level instead? It wouldn't make a difference, really, would it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's supposed to have a benefit to the national team, but as mentioned, the 2 teams from Glasgow have been exploiting that for other benefits rather than benefit of developing younger players. So
true. And also, if you think about it locally with Aberdeen, there are plenty of teams that they could loan out players to at various levels. I mean, Peterhead likely to go into League 2. So
not likely they are.
Well, they are. Cove potentially getting relegated to League 1, but Arbroath could be in the Championship. Brecon potentially getting promoted into League 2 again, and there's Montrose. Plenty of teams in and around us throughout the sort of current SPFL pyramid.
Yeah, and obviously Elgin, as we mentioned as well, where Aaron Reid's on loan at. We've sent other players and they've secured their League 2 status. So we've got plenty of local clubs that we can send players to in the league.
At various levels to challenge them,
Yeah, exactly. So interesting to see what happens on that when it comes to the vote at the end of the season. But other news before we move on to the weekend's fixture, the upcoming away fixture to Hearts, the ticket that feels like it'll be a bit of a golden ticket depending how the upcoming games go, has been moved. So it is irreplaceable. Has been moved to a lunchtime kickoff because Beyonce is playing at Murrayfield that evening. Talk about the Dons not running the world.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Not crazy in love with those puns, no?
No, awful. I don't have any, anything to fire back with. Just not a fan.
I'll sit here with my Halo then.
Fuck off. Look, I don't know why it needed to go back to 12:30, if I'm honest. I can understand maybe moving it back. They could have even done 2:00 if they're wanting to clear the area or whatever before, crowds amass for Beyonce. It doesn't need to be 12:30. It could have been 1:30, 2:00. Don't shaft us that much. What's the need? That being said, only about 600 of us are probably going to be able to go, which is also a bit of a bugbear of mine. Understand Hearts want to look after their own fans, but give us 1,000. Jesus, come on.
Yeah, exactly. It's
a
about
better
marketing the
spectacle.
game. Yeah, exactly. You want it to be a good spectacle. You want to advertise the game correctly, and you know, all about home advantage. But it's going to be certainly the one game that the bus is going to be most in demand for. I think it'll be a good bus down as well. You'll probably be as boozy as you were on the bus to Dingwall. No problems with that. But yeah, the joys of Supporters Club, I'll be exploiting that to get in to try and get a ticket, because I don't think my loyalty points cover for the demand of 600.
I might be able to. I managed to get one last time for Hearts away. However, that was when we were shit in the midweek. So I don't know. It's going to be great leaving at 7:30 or whatever it is in the bar as well. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, I'll probably have to get up about 5 to get into town for that time. Joys of living in the middle of nowhere. But back to on the pitch matters. The Dons look to crown off a terrible week and royally ruin the coronation weekend for those weirdos down in Govan, because the game has only been moved to Sunday because of their weird obsession with the royal family. Calum, are you going to the game and going to partake in the singing of God Save the King pre-match?
No and no. I wouldn't partake even if I was going. I just don't see the need. Even if that is your thing, I don't see the need for it at sporting events. Seems a bit odd. It's like Americans when they've got the national anthem before every sport event. That's weird. And no, I'm not going. Largely because I've got a birthday night out the day before, and I thought getting up for 9 o'clock, a 9 o'clock bus or whatever it is, doesn't sound fantastic. However, the fact Celtic could have won the league by the time full time, that could be pretty funny. So on the weekend of the coronation as well. But no, I'm not going. It's just a shame it's not on TV, Glen, isn't it? For us to enjoy.
It is, but I'm very glad that there'll be other means of us available to watch the game. Nice, kind invite. So I'll be making sure I watch the game. But, despite both of us not going, I think it's still pretty impressive that we managed to sell out our away allocation in less than 4 hours. Fantastic effort, and hats off to every one of you travelling down to Ibrox. And, well, actually, the bus itself sold out in 3 hours. I think Chris managed to sell it out. So pretty impressive going.
Very good shift, and I commend anyone going down there, particularly on such a weekend.
Yeah, but that's going to make it so much sweeter if we beat them this weekend as well.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. Weird though. It'll just be very. I'm sure it'll be a weird experience. But yeah a massive well done to anyone who forked out, especially again in times like these when millions, hundreds of millions being spent on the coronation, when people are struggling throughout all aspects of life. Financially, and people still digging in their pockets supporting Aberdeen. You have my respect, and I wish you the best of luck down there.
Yeah, but cheers for the day off, Charles. That's all that really matters from this weekend.
That's correct.
On the pitch, though, John Lundstrom looks set to be available for Rangers, having escaped a red card that would have probably saw Graham Shinnie banned for the whole season had he produced similar. Very interesting that the challenge was also managed to escape all highlight reels from the game as well.
Graham Shinnie would have been shot and thrown over Hadrian's Wall back to Wigan if he'd committed such a challenge. Never mind banned for a season or his life. Ridiculous. I can only imagine the excuses. Oh, we didn't want to ruin the spectacle, or maybe they couldn't see it because of all the smoke.
Well, I saw Daryl Broadfoot actually tweet that it was so early on, he didn't want to ruin the occasion, and it's a yellow at worst. But with the change of referee, it might have had an impact on the decision.
What a load of shite! When you've seen Graham Shinnie's red card, James Jego's one, which was even worse, which by the way overturned. I don't know what the fuck's going on with all of this, because if anything, it highlights how bad the system is. Anyway, the fact that ours was deemed as frivolous, but theirs was pretty similar, albeit slightly maybe not as bad. But theirs just, fine, absolutely go through. How can ours be frivolous when that's the case?
And also you have Stuart Dougal, the head of referees, coming out on whatever the fuck it was that Sports Scene did. And he said, no, it's a definite red card. As soon as you go in like that, they can have no complaints.
And then just go back on that.
Yeah.
And then this one's the worst that they both put together. And it's nothing. They don't know what they're doing. They're hopeless, useless.
But the worst thing is none of us are surprised by what happened at all.
No, not even one bit. And the fact you just send me the tackle because I'd just not seen anything about it whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's what I said. Like, I had heard about it on social media yesterday, but hadn't physically seen it until this lunchtime when I sent it to you, because I was like, we're going to have to speak about it. And yeah, it's just mental that it didn't even go to VAR for a check. So I thought it was quite ironic that he said that in his post-match comments, John Lundstrom saying that they'll have to do better with the break of the ball and take their chances. Well, he certainly took his chances on Sunday and rode his luck at times. But one player that played at Pittodrie and who is probably more of an advantage to Rangers that he's missing, because I thought he was pretty terrible last time out, was Malik Tillman, who went off with an injury that looks set to rule him out for this weekend. But Rangers maybe with a bit of a selection headache in that sense, because Scott Arfield came on in his place, a name that gives a lot of us PTSD. But Ryan Kent, another player that flattered to deceive in that first 45, was replaced by Fashion Sakala, who comically missed an open goal. So Rangers devoid on confidence. Is that something that we can look to exploit this weekend?
Hopefully, a chance to sort of really reinforce after the last game against them. The fact that Celtic, could win the league by the time the Rangers game's even over. They know they've got very little to play for, if anything at all. Being out the Scottish Cup. A lot of players probably thinking, am I going to be here next season? We saw how that affected us last season. Certainly under Jim Goodwin. So it's a big chance. Still going to Ibrox, I'm not convinced. And my dad, once again, this tinfoil hat on, is going, I wonder when, we should get a penalty and they don't, and then 5 minutes later they'll get a penalty for a joke and then we'll get a red card. Always possible down there. So that is sort of playing on my mind. But I think we do have a chance. I'm not as confident as I was when they were coming up here, however.
No, I think you're never as confident as when they come up here, because for all the reasons that Neil stated, you just know that a dodgy penalty or a red card could be awarded at any moment, and especially on the back of back-to-back defeats, the whoever's in charge will not be wanting to upset the Hordes any further on a weekend that I'm sure they don't need ruined. But how do you think we then look to approach this game? Because we're going into this game, and should be going into this game, full of confidence, defensively and attack-minded. We beat this team 2-0 2 weeks ago. We've only conceded one goal in 7, and that was from a penalty. Do we look to frustrate Rangers in the opening exchanges and get those Ibrox Hordes turning and get them on the players' backs? Or do we look to do what Stephen Glass did and go down there, try and score early and frustrate them in that sense?
I think by Robson, just go more off the way we play up here as well. Rangers haven't been fantastic, but at the same time, they do have players that on their day can be pretty good. As much as it hates me, I hate to admit that. I think it'll be sort of similar in terms of frustrating them. Everyone at Aberdeen will be aware of the sort of situation that's going on down there at the minute, even if they won't admit it in the media, in the lead up to it, perhaps. And they'll know that if Rangers aren't massively on top and maybe even a goal in front by 15, 20 minutes, and then things start going against them and we start coming into the game a little bit more, fans will turn, and it can be an awful place, I can imagine, to play when the fans do turn. So I think they should probably try and lean into that, in my opinion.
Do you think we'll look to commit as much niggly fouls and break up the game as much as we did 2 weeks ago, because again, we mentioned the pressure that the referee is going to be under, the pressure probably from the crowd as well. Do you think we get away with as much? Obviously we didn't pick up a booking until 13 fouls into the game last time out, but do you think again that's something that Barry Robson's going to look to exploit the flow of the game and try and make it as niggly as possible?
I think so. I hope it's 14 fouls before we pick up a booking this time. However, I can't imagine it'll be allowed to go that far at Ibrox. Again, without putting a tinfoil hat on. But I hope that we do sort of try and disrupt things like that, because it gets the Rangers players frustrated. They're more likely to make mistakes. Then the crowd gets on top of them even more, perhaps added more pressure that the players don't necessarily need. And it just disrupts the flow of things. Unfortunately, they do have decent players, and they are capable of making things happen on their day. But if we can try and disrupt that, be annoying, be pests, essentially all embody Yoba Ramadani, and just be absolute bastards for 90 minutes, then we've got a very good chance.
But we've also got players on our day that can cause Rangers problems in the same hand, and we've got to be on our game. And both Duke and Miovski have been extremely clinical, and long may that continue into this weekend as well, because if we can wind up the likes of Alan McGregor, catch the Rangers defence sleeping like they were at the weekend against Celtic, we've got two players up top that will absolutely pounce on any opportunity. And yeah, we speak about it all the time when we go to Parkhead or Ibrox, that we do need to be clinical. We do need to take our chances and get the balls into the right place, and hopefully Duke or Miovski can finish the job.
Absolutely. I mean, we need to be resolute. There will be pressure on us. We need to make it very difficult for them. We need to be niggly. We need to break up the play. But when we do have those chances to break on them in particular, you think the likes of Duke, an excellent ball carrier, we need to be committing bodies forward so he can sort of take those chances. If Liam Scales wants to come up with another once a goal, then I'm absolutely all right with that. But we also need to be clinical. I mean, you look at how we went there. Connor Barron put us 1-0 up, and then we folded.
Shit the bed.
Like a deck chair. Exactly. We shit the bed. Less of that. Be resolute. But when you do get opportunities to break on them and commit bodies forward, do it and take the chances. I mean, you've got Duke and Miovski. I'm quite confident that when we do get those chances, we will take them.
Yeah, and we were resolute last time out with Tawdry, but I think we also rode our luck at times as well. And being resolute and riding your luck away from home is a totally different kettle of fish than it is doing it at home, because you don't have the crowd with you as much away from home, and especially at places like Ibrox where you've got such a limited number of fans. But don't get me wrong, that those in the away end will make as much noise and do as much as they can to cheer the boys on. But I don't see us making any changes from the team that started last time out. And, one thing that's been consistent about Barry Robson has been his team selection and certainly his substitutions. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's go with the same team that beat them last time.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. There's no change there. I mean, perhaps through lack of other options, mind you.
Yeah,
but when it's working, don't change it. I just hope that they've got the right balance of fitness and freshness that Barry Robson was talking about after that Rangers game going into our little break.
It's interesting, though, you mention about the Hearts game and possibly, Celtic winning the league before full time. But on the other hand, if from an Aberdeen point of view, if Hearts were to go and get a positive result in that kickoff, because it's 45 minutes between our game starting and their game starting, how do you think that affects us if the news was to filter through? Because I think it would, in all likelihood, filter through that Celtic have dropped points from a Rangers fan's point of view.
Absolutely. And then from an Aberdeen point of view, Hearts have picked up points. Disaster. Hopefully they'll be able to stick to task, and hopefully it doesn't get to that stage in the first place.
I know, relying on Celtic twice in the next 6 games to do us a favour.
I suppose, for example, if Hearts do pick up a point, or if we know they've lost, we might then be able to, like, sometimes they might not commit as much, like needless bodies forward or do something stupid like go and hold the ball in the corner when they should be doing that instead of putting a cross in or whatever, chasing a goal or an extra goal. That might help in terms of their sort of awareness of that, and then we might not give away 2 goals in the 90-odd minute. Sorry to bring that back up, but it'll be an interesting one, and the fact they've done it like that seems very odd, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it really does, but is this weekend also a case of any point is a bonus? Or should we be going down with an expectation to be coming away from Ibrox with 1 or 3 points?
I think given our form and given their form, times go to Ibrox, I've just been convinced we're never going to get anything. Yeah. I think at this moment in time, I am relatively confident we can come away with a result. Whether that's 3 points or 1, I'm probably leaning towards it probably being the latter. However, I think it would be an okay result. I mean, Hearts obviously have to play Celtic and Rangers, especially if Hearts lose. A point is perfect, brilliant. Who cares? Yeah. Stretches the gap to 6. And I'd be delighted with that. But, with Hearts having to play both of them as well, their record against the two hasn't been fantastic. So anything, and then potentially Celtic coming to Celtic aren't talking anymore.
No, we're going there on the last day.
The schedule's fucked me up. And the fact we've got to play them, sorry, that's what it was. The fact we've got to play them on the last day when they've got a Scottish Cup final to, half an eye on that when the league will probably be already won. That maybe goes in our favour. I know Hearts fans haven't been particularly happy about that. So, to answer your question, yes, a point would be good.
Yeah, that was a very long-winded way of answering that. But I tend to agree with basically everything you said there, that I think we should, we should be confident about getting some form of result from this weekend. But it's just that fear for me as a fan that sometimes comes with playing at Ibrox. And I think going into this game with 0 expectation means that I can't be severely let down if it does go horribly wrong. But as long as Celtic do their part of the business, in terms of beating Hearts, anything we pick up from this weekend is an added bonus. Any opportunity to stretch that gap in third would be greatly received, because I think, the fact that Hearts need to pick up that 5 points just to close the gap on us, anything that we can do to make it harder for them with that home game against Hibs and what looks to be a sellout crowd at Pittodrie coming up makes life even more difficult for them. Of course, they go to St Mirren in game week 2 of the split fixtures. So interesting times coming up. Hopefully the positive times continue for us on this podcast. We'll see what Sunday brings, and then we'll look forward to welcoming back Michael Monin onto the show to preview the Hibs game. So something to look forward to in that sense if the footballing goes terribly wrong.
Can you not still be out celebrating the 6-0 trophy that they got despite being 9 points behind us?
Well, potentially. I'm sure if he's tuned in, he'll enjoy that one. But to all of you that have tuned in to this episode, whether it be on YouTube or audio, thank you very much for your continued support. Remember to leave a like, a review, a comment, whatever you feel most comfortable with doing. Until next time, come on, you Reds.
Thank you.